Step into Justice Insight Cam. We provide an objective look at real-life law enforcement encounters caught on bodycam. Going beyond the surface, we dissect the legalities, the truth, and the educational aspects of every situation. Let's uncover the reality of policing.
Up! Show me your hands! Hands up! Stop reaching! Hands where I can see them! Hands up or I will tase you!
A deaf man heads home after work. He was born profoundly deaf. He communicates using American Sign Language. He wears bilateral hearing aids on both ears. Medical devices visible, obvious. A police officer pulls him over. Broken tail light. A routine traffic stop. 2:47 p.m. on a Wednesday afternoon. The officer barks commands. The deaf driver can't hear them. He's deaf. He signs in American Sign Language. I am deaf. I cannot hear you. The officer doesn't know sign language, sees the hand movements as threatening gestures. The deaf man points to his hearing aids. Right ear, left ear. Look, see, understand. I am deaf. The officer sees the hand reaching toward the head, thinks he's reaching for a weapon. The deaf man reaches for his registration in the glove compartment, trying to comply, trying to help. The officer thinks he's reaching for a gun, draws his taser, shouts warnings the deaf man cannot hear, deploys 50,000 volts. The deaf man's body seizes. He collapses, crying in shock. This is Anthony Lewis, 28 years old, American Sign Language interpreter, born profoundly deaf, wears bilateral hearing aids, has a disabled parking placard in his car marked hearing disability. He was tased for not hearing commands he couldn't possibly hear, for using sign language the officer didn't recognize, for pointing to hearing aids the officer didn't see. This will end up costing $8.7 million. It will end one officer's career. It will expose how lack of disability awareness training turns routine traffic stops into violent encounters. And it will prove that visible disability markers mean nothing if officers aren't trained to see them. Subscribe to the channel and leave a comment below if you think deaf people shouldn't be tased for not hearing police commands. 28 years ago, Anthony Lewis was born profoundly deaf, and his parents discovered it when he was 8 months old and didn't respond to loud noises. Bilateral sensory neural hearing loss. His auditory nerves didn't transmit sound signals to his brain. His parents learned American Sign Language, raised him in both deaf and hearing cultures. By age 2, Anthony was fluent in ASL. By age 5, he was fitted with bilateral hearing aids. The hearing aids provided some sound awareness, but didn't restore normal hearing. He could detect loud noises, sense vibrations, get environmental cues, but he couldn't understand speech through hearing alone. He relied on lip reading, sign language, and visual communication. He attended school for the deaf through high school, then Gallaudet University in Washington, D.C., the world's premier university for deaf students, studied interpretation and linguistics, became a certified ASL interpreter. He worked to bridge communication gaps between deaf and hearing communities, interpreted at hospitals, courts, schools, businesses, helped deaf patients understand doctors, helped deaf defendants understand legal proceedings, helped deaf students access education. He was good at his job, patient, clear, professional. He'd spent his entire life navigating a hearing world that wasn't built for him. Used to explaining, used to repeating, used to people not understanding at first, but nothing prepared him for what would happen during a routine traffic stop on a Wednesday afternoon in October. Wednesday, October 18th. Anthony finished an interpreting job at a medical clinic at 2 p.m. He'd spent 3 hours helping a deaf patient understand a diabetes diagnosis. Good session. The patient left understanding their treatment plan. Anthony felt satisfied. He drove home in his Honda Civic. Bright afternoon, clear skies, speed limit 35. He was doing 33. Turn signal on, hands at 10 and 2. Careful driver, always. He didn't know the left tail light had burned out. The bulb went out sometime that morning. He had no way of knowing. Couldn't see it from the driver's seat. At 2:47 p.m., police lights flashed behind him. Red and blue, bright in the afternoon sun. Anthony didn't hear the sirens. He was deaf. Sirens meant nothing. But he saw the lights in his rearview mirror. Universal signal. Pull over. He immediately signaled, checked mirrors, pulled to the right shoulder, complete stop, park, engine off. Both hands on the steering wheel at 10 and 2, the position he'd been taught. Hands visible, no sudden movements. Wait for the officer. The disabled parking placard hung from his rear-view mirror. Blue and white international symbol of access. Text hearing disability visible in the afternoon light. His bilateral hearing aids were in both ears. Behind the ear models, beige-colored, clearly visible in daylight, each about 1.5 inches long, curved behind the ear. Medical devices obvious, unmistakable. Officer Derek Polson approached from the rear, stopped at the back of Anoni's vehicle, checked license plate, ran registration. Clean. Polson walked to the driver's window, knocked on the glass. Anthony didn't hear the knock. He was deaf. Polson knocked again, harder, assumed the driver heard and was ignoring him. Anthony still didn't respond, looking straight ahead, hands on wheel, waiting for the officer to appear at his window. Polson knocked a third time very hard. Irritated, Anthony felt the vibration through the door. Impact of knuckles on glass. Turned his head left, saw the officer. This is where it began. Anthony saw Officer Polson at his window in the bright afternoon light. Did what he'd been taught. Slowly reached for the window button with one hand. Kept the other hand visible on the wheel. Polson saw the hand movement, shouted, "Keep your hands where I can see them." Anthony didn't hear. He was deaf. He pressed the button. Window descended. Polson tensed. Driver not following commands. Red flag. Window fully opened. Anthony turned to face Polson, made eye contact, smiled politely, began signing in ASL. His hands moved in clear, deliberate signs. "I am deaf. I cannot hear you." The ASL sign for death is an index finger. Pointing to the ear, then moving to point to the mouth, means cannot hear, cannot speak, audibly. Anthony made this sign clearly in full daylight. Polson saw hands moving rapidly. No context for ASL. Never trained to recognize sign language. Saw movements as aggressive gestures, possible threat. Polson shouted, "Keep your hands still, license and registration." Anthony didn't hear. He continued signing. "I am deaf. I cannot hear you. I have hearing aids." He pointed to his right ear. Index finger extended, pointing directly at the beige hearing aid hooked behind his ear. Clear gesture in broad daylight. "Look at this. See this. Understand this." Polson saw the hand moving toward the head, toward the ear. Saw it as reaching. Training kicked in. Hands near waistband. Hands near head. Hands reaching equals potential weapon draw. Polson's hand moved to his service weapon. Unsnapped the holster. Didn't draw, but ready. "Show me your hands now." Anthony still couldn't hear. He pointed to his left ear. "Now." The other hearing aid both clearly visible in the afternoon sun. "Look, see both ears' hearing aids. I am deaf." Then he reached for the glove compartment to get his registration. Seemed helpful to him. Catastrophic in the moment. Polson saw the hand movement toward the glove compartment. Saw the driver reaching after, ignoring multiple commands. Training, adrenaline, fear converged. Son drew his service weapon, pointed it at Anthony, shouted, "Hands up! Do not reach for that! Hands up now!" Anthony didn't hear. He was opening the glove compartment, reaching for registration. Paulson's body camera captured this perfectly in the afternoon light. Anoni's bilateral hearing aids clearly visible in both ears. Disabled parking placard hanging from rearview mirror, text readable. Hands moving slowly, carefully toward glove compartment. No weapon, no threat, just compliance. Paulson made a split-second decision. Driver not complying. Reaching for something. Multiple commands ignored. Threat assessment. Hi. Paulson holstered his weapon and drew his taser instead. Less lethal option. Yellow and black electronic control device. Hands up or I will tase you. Anthony didn't hear the warning. He was deaf. He pulled the registration from the glove compartment, turned to hand it to the officer. Smile still on his face, trying to be helpful. Here's what you need. Paulson saw the hand coming toward him with something in it. Saw non-compliance continuing. Saw potential threat. He pulled the trigger. The taser fired. 2 metal probes shot out on thin wires. 50,000 volts. Designed to incapacitate through neuromuscular disruption. Both probes hit Anthony. 1 upper chest, 1 abdomen. 50,000 volts surged through his body. Anani's muscles seized. Every muscle contracted simultaneously. No control. Body went rigid. Registration fell from his hand. Couldn't breathe, couldn't move, couldn't scream. He fell sideways in the driver's seat, still seat-belted, body rigid, muscles locked. Pain radiating through every nerve. 5 seconds. Standard taser cycle. Felt like 5 hours. When the current stopped, Anthony collapsed, gasping, chest heaving, heart racing, confused, terrified, pain everywhere. He looked up at Paulson in the afternoon light. Hands went to his chest where the probes hit. Tears in his eyes started signing frantically. I am death. I am death. I cannot hear you. Why did you hurt me? Paulson saw more hand gestures, still didn't understand. Approached vehicle, opened door, ordered Anthony out. Anthony couldn't hear. He was in shock, in pain, crying. Stayed in seat, hand signing. I am deaf, please. I am deaf. Paulson interpreted non-compliance as continued resistance reached in, grabbed Anani's arm, pulled him from vehicle. Anthony stumbled out into the afternoon, sun legs weak from taser shock, fell to his knees, on roadside hands, went up automatically. Universal gesture. I surrender. Don't hurt me. Paulson pulled Anoni's hands behind his back, handcuffed tight metal, cutting into wrists. Anthony was sobbing, still signing with handcuffed hands behind his back. Death, death, deaf, the only word he could make with hands restrained. A second patrol car arrived. Officer Linda Martinez. She'd heard Paulson's radio call. Traffic stop. Driver non-compliant. Taser deployed. Subject secured. Martinez approached in the bright afternoon. Saw Anthony on the ground handcuffed crying. Saw the hearing aids in both ears, clearly visible in daylight. Saw the disabled placard in the car. Saw the registration on the ground where Anthony had dropped it. She looked at Paulson. Is he deaf? Paulson looked at Anthony in the full light of day. Looked at the hearing aids he'd somehow not noticed. Looked at the disabled placard. Looked at the registration. Realization hit. Martinez knelt next to Anthony. She'd taken basic ASL in high school, remembered a few signs, signed slowly. DEAF. Anani's face transformed. Relief, recognition, someone understood. He nodded, frantically. Sign back. Yes. Deaf. Cannot hear. Hearing aids. Martinez looked at Paulson. He's deaf. He couldn't hear your commands. Look at his hearing aids. Look at the placard. Paulson's face went pale. He just tased a deaf man for not hearing commands. It was on body camera. All of it. In broad daylight, Martinez gently removed Anoni's handcuffs, helped him sit up, started signing the few signs she remembered. Sorry, police. Mistake. Anthony was shaking in shock. Chest hurt where the taser probes hit. Muscles arced. Heart racing. He'd been tased for being deaf. for not hearing, for trying to comply. Martinez called for paramedics. Taser deployment required medical evaluation. While they waited in the afternoon sun, Martinez used her phone to type messages to Anthony. He read them. "I'm so sorry. Officer didn't realize you're deaf. Are you hurt? Paramedics coming." Anthony typed back. "I tried to tell him I'm deaf. I pointed to my hearing aids. I was getting my registration." Why did he hurt me? Martinez had no good answer. Paramedics arrived at 3:03 p.m. They assessed Anthony carefully in the afternoon sun. Taser burns on chest and abdomen where the probes had made contact. Elevated heart rate 120 beats per minute. Blood pressure elevated from stress and pain. Psychological shock evident. Trembling, crying, difficulty focusing. They removed the taser probes, small puncture wounds, applied burn ointment and bandages, checked his heart rhythm, normal sinus rhythm, despite the electrical shock. No permanent cardiac damage, but the psychological trauma was clear. Anthony kept signing to the paramedics even though they didn't understand ASL, kept pointing to his hearing aids, kept trying to explain. Officer Martinez translated using her phone. The paramedics recommended transport to the hospital for full evaluation. Standard protocol after taser deployment. Anthony agreed. He was scared, his chest hurt, he wanted a doctor to confirm he was okay. They transported him to County General Hospital. Martinez rode with him, continuing to communicate through typed messages on her phone. At the hospital, Anani's parents were notified. His mother arrived at 3:45 p.m., saw her son with bandages on his chest, saw the taser burn marks, and broke down crying. Her deaf son, her baby, had been tased by police for being deaf. His father arrived 10 minutes later, a quiet man who'd learned sign language when Anthony was diagnosed as a baby. He sat next to his son and signed, "What happened? Are you okay?" Anthony signed back the whole story, pulled over, tried to explain, "I'm deaf," pointed to hearing aids. Officer didn't understand, reached for registration, got tased, felt like I was dying, couldn't breathe, couldn't move. So much pain. His father's hands shook with anger as he signed back. "We're getting a lawyer. This should never have happened to you." Hospital staff evaluated Anthony. No permanent physical injuries. Taser burns would heal within a week. Heart, function normal, but they noted significant psychological trauma. Recommended follow-up with a therapist specializing in PTSD. Anthony was discharged at 6 p.m. with instructions to rest, monitor the burn sites, and seek counseling for trauma. Officer Paulson filed his incident report that evening. Afternoon traffic stop for broken tail light. Driver non-compliant with verbal commands. Driver made threatening gestures toward head and reached toward glove compartment despite commands to stop. Taser deployed for officer safety. Subject secured. Then discovered subject was deaf and couldn't hear commands. Body camera footage attached. The report was clinical, bureaucratic. It didn't capture the terror Anthony felt, the confusion, the pain, the betrayal of being hurt by someone supposed to protect him. The next morning, Anani's family contacted attorney Rebecca Chen, a civil rights lawyer known for handling police misconduct cases. She'd successfully sued police departments for excessive force, unlawful arrests, and civil rights violations. She met with Anthony and his family that afternoon. Anthony brought the hospital discharge papers showing the taser burns. His father brought the disabled parking placard from the car. His mother brought Anani's iologist records documenting his profound deafness since birth. Attorney Chen listened to Anani's account through an ASL interpreter, watched him sign the story, saw the emotion, the trauma, the confusion about why this happened. She asked to see any documentation from the police. Anthony had received a citation for the broken tail light. Nothing else, no apology, no acknowledgement of what happened. Attorney Chen requested the body camera footage through official channels. The police department had 72 hours to respond. When the footage arrived 3 days later, Attorney Chen watched it 5 times. Each viewing made her angrier. The footage showed everything in clear afternoon light. Anoni's hearing aids visible from frame. 1. The disabled placard hanging clearly. Anani's ASL signs crystal clear. His repeated pointing to his ears. His slow, careful reach for the glove compartment. The registration visible in his hand as the taser fired. She called Anoni's family. "We have a very strong case. The body camera captured everything in broad daylight. Your son's hearing aids are clearly visible. His disability placard is visible. He was signing in ASL. He was pointing to his hearing aids. He was complying by getting his registration, and he was tased. Anyway, this is a clear violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act and his civil rights." She explained the legal process. "We'll file a federal lawsuit. It will take time, probably 18 months to 2 years. But the evidence is overwhelming. The body camera doesn't lie." Anthony signed a question through the interpreter. "Will this stop it from happening to other deaf people?" Attorney Chen's answer was honest. "That's what we're going to fight for. The lawsuit will force policy changes, training requirements, accountability. This should never happen to anyone again." 6 weeks later, Attorney Chen filed the lawsuit in federal court. The lawsuit named the city police department and officer Derek Polson as defendants. The claims were comprehensive. Count 1. Excessive force in violation of the Fourth Amendment. Taser deployment without reasonable justification. Count 2. Violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Failure to recognize and accommodate Anani's deafness during the traffic stop. Count 3. Failure to train. The police department provided zero training on recognizing hearing aids, communicating with deaf individuals, or understanding disability markers. Count 4. Civil rights violation. Under 42 U.S.C. Section 1983, deprivation of rights under color of law. Count 5. Assault and battery, intentional infliction of harmful contact through taser deployment. Count 6. Intentional infliction of emotional distress, severe psychological harm from the tasing and subsequent treatment. The evidence was methodically compiled. Body camera footage became Exhibit A. Attorney Chen had it professionally analyzed, time-stamped, and annotated. The afternoon lighting made everything crystal clear. The annotations highlighted key moments. 015. Bilateral hearing aids visible in daylight. 022 ASL, sign for deaf. 025 pointing to right hearing aid. 028 pointing to left hearing aid. 042 taser deployed. 050 subject signing deaf while crying. Professional photographs of Anani's bilateral hearing aids became Exhibit B, close-up shots showing the medical devices clearly. Behind the ear models, beige-colored standard hearing aid design. Unmistakable. Photograph of the disabled parking placard became Exhibit C, blue and white international symbol of Access Large Text Hearing Disability issued by the state DMV with Anoni's information. Anoni's complete medical records became Exhibit D, iologist reports from birth. Diagnosis of bilateral sensory neural hearing loss, audiogram showing profound deafness, hearing aid prescriptions and fitting records, documentation spanning 28 years proving his deafness was permanent, documented and real. Hospital records from the afternoon of the incident became Exhibit E, taser burn documentation. Vital signs showing elevated heart rate and blood pressure from stress. Psychological trauma noted. Discharge instructions recommending PTSD counseling. ASL expert analysis became Exhibit F. Professor James Rodriguez from Gallaudet University reviewed the body camera footage frame by frame. His report identified every ASL sign Anthony made. Sign for death at 0:22. Textbook perfect. One hand index finger touches ear, then moves to mouth. Universal ASL sign. Sign for cannot hear at 0:24. Both hands make clear gesture. Pointing gestures at 0:25 and 0:28, clearly indicating hearing aids in both ears. Conclusion: Anoni's communication was clear, proper ASL, and would be immediately understood by anyone with basic sign language knowledge. The afternoon lighting made every sign perfectly visible. Department training records became Exhibit G. These records were damning. 0 hours of disability awareness training for any officer. 0 hours on recognizing assisted devices, including hearing aids, wheelchairs, canes, or service animals. 0 hours on basic ASL. 0 hours on conducting traffic stops with disabled drivers. 0 hours on the Americans with Disabilities Act requirements. Officer Polson's personnel file became Exhibit H. 4 prior complaints involving excessive force. Complaint 1, 2018, tased suspect, who was later found to have mental health crisis. Complaint 2, 2019, physical altercation with arrestee resulting in injuries. Complaint 3, 2020 taser deployment on teenager who was running away. Complaint 4, 2021, excessive force during traffic stop. All 4 complaints involved people of color. All 4 were dismissed as unfounded or not sustained without thorough investigation. Expert testimony was secured from multiple specialists. Dr. Karen Pfizer, iologist with 30 years experience, would testify about Anani's hearing loss. Her report explained bilateral sensory neural hearing loss in clear terms. The hair cells in Anoni's inner ear don't function properly. Sound vibrations aren't converted to neural signals. The auditory nerve doesn't receive information to transmit to the brain. Hearing aids amplify sound and provide environmental awareness, but cannot restore normal hearing. Anani's hearing aids give him some sense of vibration and loud sounds, but he cannot understand speech through hearing alone. He relies on visual communication, lip reading, and sign language. He cannot hear shouted commands, even with hearing aids in Professor James Rodriguez. ASL linguistics expert from Gallaudet University would testify about sign language communication. His report explained ASL is a complete complex language with its own grammar and syntax. The sign for deaf is universally recognized in the deaf community. Anani's signs were clear, grammatically correct, and would be understood by anyone with even basic ASL knowledge. Pointing to hearing aids is a common way deaf people communicate their deafness to hearing people who don't know sign language. The afternoon lighting conditions made every gesture perfectly visible. Chief Michael Thompson, retired police chief with 35 years experience, would testify as use of force expert. His report was scathing. Officer Polson's use of the taser was not justified under any reasonable standard. The subject posed no threat, made no aggressive movements, was complying by attempting to provide requested documentation. The failure to recognize obvious disability markers, bilateral hearing aids, and disabled parking placard clearly visible in daylight demonstrated a complete lack of disability awareness training. In 35 years of law enforcement, I have never seen such a clear case of unjustified force against a disabled individual who was actively attempting to communicate his disability in full daylight conditions, where every disability marker was plainly visible. The trial began 14 months after the incident. Federal Courthouse, Judge Patricia Morrison presiding. Jury of 8 selected after 2 days of voir dire. Opening statements laid out the case. Attorney Chen showed the body camera footage to the jury, pointed out the hearing aids visible in both ears in the afternoon light, the disabled placard, the ASL signs, the pointing to ears, the slow reach for registration. Then she showed what happened next. The taser firing, Anani's body seizing, his collapse, his tears, his desperate signing. Death. Death. This case is about a failure to see, a failure to recognize, a failure to understand. Anthony Lewis is deaf. He has been deaf since birth. He wears hearing aids. He has a disabled parking placard. He uses sign language. All of these things were visible to Officer Poulsen in broad daylight. But Officer Poulsen had never been trained to recognize them, and Anthony paid the price for that lack of training. Anthony testified on day 2. The courtroom had an ASL interpreter. Anthony signed his testimony. The interpreter voiced it for the court. He described his life as a deaf person, growing up in deaf culture, learning to navigate the hearing world, becoming an interpreter to help bridge communication gaps. Then he described the traffic stop, every detail, seeing the police lights in the afternoon, pulling over, waiting, opening his window, signing "I am deaf," pointing to his hearing aids, reaching for his registration to comply. Then the pain, the taser, the electricity shooting through his body, his muscles seizing, unable to breathe, falling, the terror, the confusion. Why was the officer hurting him? What had he done wrong? After the current stopped, lying on the ground in the afternoon sun, handcuffed, crying, still trying to sign "I am deaf," with his hands restrained, still trying to explain, still trying to make the officer understand. His testimony was powerful. Several jurors were visibly moved. Cross-examination tried to establish that Anthony should have kept his hands still when ordered, but Attorney Chen's objection was sustained. How could he comply with orders he couldn't hear because he's deaf? Dr. Pfizer testified on day 3, explained the medical reality of profound deafness, showed Anoni's audiograms, explained hearing aids provide awareness but not comprehension. Anthony cannot hear speech, cannot hear shouted commands, relies entirely on visual communication. Professor Rodriguez testified on day 4, showed video of himself making the same ASL signs Anthony made. Sign for deaf, sign for cannot hear, explained these are basic fundamental signs any ASL course would teach in week 1. Explained that pointing to hearing aids is universal deaf communication to hearing people. Noted that the afternoon lighting made every sign perfectly clear and visible. Chief Thompson testified on day 5, reviewed the use of force, called it unjustified, explained that reasonable officer training includes disability awareness. Officers should be trained to recognize hearing aids, to check for disability placards, to consider communication barriers before escalating. He noted that Officer Poulsen had multiple opportunities to recognize Anani's deafness. The hearing aids, the placard, the sign language, the pointing to ears, each was a clear indicator. Each was clearly visible in the afternoon daylight. Each was missed because Poulsen lacked basic training. Officer Poulsen testified on day 6. His attorney tried to portray the tasing as a split-second decision under pressure, but the cross-examination dismantled that defense. Attorney Chen played the body camera footage, paused at frame, showing hearing aids clearly visible in daylight. Did you see these hearing aids during the traffic stop? Not at the time. No, they were visible from the moment the window opened. In full daylight? How did you miss them? I was focused on the subject's hands. His hands were making ASL signs for "I am deaf." Did you recognize them? No. Have you ever received training in American Sign Language? No. Have you ever received training on recognizing hearing aids? No. The subject pointed to his ears twice in broad daylight. What did you think he was doing? I thought he was reaching for something for his ears. Silence! Did you see the disabled parking placard in this car? I don't recall. It says hearing disability in large letters for license and registration. I gave for license and registration. I gave commands to stop. Commands a deaf person cannot hear. When he didn't respond, did you consider he might not be able to hear you? No. Why not? I assumed if he couldn't hear, He would tell me. He did tell you in sign language in full daylight where every gesture was perfectly visible. You just didn't understand the language. Poulsen had no response. The jury deliberated for 2 hours and 40 minutes. Returned with verdict. Liable on all counts. 18 months after the incident. Settlement reached $8.7 million. $3.22 million to Anthony Lewis for excessive force, ADA violations, civil rights violations, assault, emotional distress, and 6 months lost income. $5.5 million punitive damages against the police department and Poulsen personally. Officer Derek Poulsen, terminated for cause, barred from law enforcement in the state, personally liable $300,000. 4 prior excessive force complaints reopened, all found meritorious. Department of Justice, open pattern and practice investigation, found systemic failures, 0 disability awareness training, no protocols for recognizing assistive devices, no ADA guidelines, DOJ consent decree mandated reforms. All officers required 80 hours disability awareness training. Training included recognizing hearing aids, cochlear implants, wheelchairs, service, animals, basic ASL instruction, deaf, help, hurt, sick, medicine. New traffic stop protocols. Officers must check for disability markers before escalating. Taser deployment revised. Must rule out disability. Medical emergency language barrier first. State Representative Maria Gonzalez introduced Law Enforcement Disability Awareness Act, required all state officers complete disability awareness training as basic certification. Anthony testified before state legislature, showed body camera footage, showed hearing aids, signed testimony through interpreter. Bill passed unanimously, named the Anthony Lewis Disability Awareness Act. 6 months after settlement, Anthony Lewis is rebuilding his life. Returned to work as ASL interpreter after intensive PTSD therapy. Still interprets at hospitals, courts, schools, but driving triggers anxiety. Seeing police cars causes panic attacks. His therapist calls it hypervigilance. Used settlement to establish Lewis Foundation for Deaf Rights. Provides free legal representation for deaf individuals facing law enforcement discrimination. Created 40-hour ASL curriculum for police departments. Adopted by 12 departments already expanding rapidly. Anthony became police trainer. Travels to departments teaching disability awareness. Shows body camera footage. Demonstrates ASL signs. Most common question officers ask, how do we avoid Officer Poulsen's mistake? Anani's answer through interpreter. Look, really look. My hearing aids were visible. My placard was visible. I was signing. I was pointing to my ears. All the information was right in front of Officer Poulsen in broad daylight, but he didn't see it because he'd never been taught to look for it. You can't recognize what you've never learned to see. When speaking publicly, honest about ongoing impact. Physical injuries healed within 2 weeks. Psychological trauma persists. Nightmares, panic attacks, fear during routine driving. His message focuses on prevention. I don't want sympathy. I want change. I want every officer to recognize hearing aids, to know basic ASL. To understand disability doesn't mean threat. Officer Poulsen's deposition revealed training failure depth. I didn't know what hearing aids looked like. I'd never been trained on that. I didn't know sign language. If I had known he was deaf, I would have approached completely differently, but I didn't know, and I'd never been trained to look for the signs. Asked what he'd say to Anthony. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I hurt you. I'm sorry I didn't see your hearing aids. I'm sorry I tased you for being deaf. I wish I'd been trained better. Anoni's response. I believe he's sorry. But being sorry doesn't change what happened. The real apology isn't words. It's change, training, policy, making sure this never happens to another deaf person. Officer Linda Martinez, who recognized Anani's deafness, became department's first disability liaison officer, now trains every new recruit on disability accommodation. Department now has 4 officers fluent in ASL. Partnerships with deaf advocacy organizations, quarterly training refreshers. National Association of the Deaf used Anani's case to push for federal legislation requiring disability awareness training for all federally funded law enforcement. I've been deaf my entire life, 28 years navigating a world built for hearing people. But I didn't understand this, being hurt for being deaf, being tased because I couldn't hear. My hearing aids were visible in both ears in broad afternoon light. I pointed to them, but Officer Polson didn't see them because he'd never been trained to look. When I signed, "I am deaf" in American Sign Language, I was using a real language. But to Officer Polson, my signs looked like threatening gestures, because he'd never been taught what ASL looks like. The 8.7 million matters, but money doesn't heal trauma. Money doesn't erase nightmares. What matters more is the change, the training, the reforms, the Anthony Lewis Act, the ASL, program in police mice, the protocols requiring officers to check for disability markers before escalating. The body camera footage from my traffic stop has been viewed by thousands of officers in training. They see my hearing aids clearly visible in daylight. They see my signs. They see me pointing to my ears. They see the registration in my hand when the taser fires. They understand this is what failure to recognize disability looks like. Officer Polson missed all of it in broad daylight because he'd never been trained to see it. That's an indictment of a system that sent officers into the community without basic disability awareness. That system is changing because of my case, because police departments realize they can't afford financially or morally to keep making the same mistake. But the change isn't finished. 12 police departments have adopted our ASL training program. That's progress, but hundreds more still don't have it. The work continues. Training sessions, advocacy, legislative testimony. Because disability rights aren't optional, they're the law. The Americans with Disabilities Act has been the law for over 30 years, but it only matters if people follow it. I will spend the rest of my life making sure police officers can recognize hearing aids, can recognize disability, can see what's right in front of them because I can't take back what happened to me. But I can make sure it doesn't happen to the next deaf person, the next wheelchair user, the next person with any disability trying to navigate encounters with law enforcement. That's what justice looks like. Not just a settlement, but change that protects the people who come after me. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next.
Thank you for joining us. If you appreciate this level of detail, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to Justice Insight Cam. Stay knowledgeable, keep yourself safe, and tune in for our next update.